All right, so we're diving deep today into Oppenheimer. This is Christopher Nolan's latest, and well, I've got to say, Inception is still messing with my head a little. His films just stick with you.
I think what really grabs you with Oppenheimer is that it's not your run-of-the-mill biopic. You've got the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer, yeah, the father of the atomic bomb. But Nolan digs so much deeper. You see how this guy wrestled with the weight of his creation, the political pressures of that time. It really hits home, even today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, right off the bat, you're thrown headfirst into the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
No messing around. It's like you're right there with these brilliant minds racing against the clock to build this, well, this weapon of unimaginable power.
And you got to remember, this is World War II. The stakes couldn't be higher. Everyone's terrified of what the Nazis might do if they get the bomb first.
It's incredible how the film captures the sheer scale of it all. Building a whole secret city from scratch out in the New Mexico desert just to create this weapon, this thing that could change the world forever.
And in the middle of all that pressure, you have Oppenheimer, a brilliant, complex guy wrestling with the whole moral dilemma of what he's creating. He was in uncharted territory, leading some of the best minds in the world.
And then, of course, there's the Trinity test, the first atomic bomb detonation. The film builds up to this moment, and when it finally happens, wow, it's awe-inspiring and absolutely terrifying all at once.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally feel the ground shake.
Oh, yeah. A total turning point in history, no doubt about it. But also a turning point for Oppenheimer himself, wouldn't you say? He achieves what he set out to do, but at a cost. Nolan doesn't shy away from showing us what the bomb did, especially in those scenes from Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Those scenes are just gut-wrenching. It's the human cost, the sheer devastation.
Yeah.
It really makes you confront the power that Oppenheimer and his team unleashed, and you see how deeply it affected him.
Right. He's struggling with what he's done. Created a weapon that could destroy everything. Hailed as a hero by some, but clearly haunted by the potential consequences. It's a lot to carry.
And from there, the film really dives into the political fallout. It's not just about the science anymore. Suddenly, it's all about politics. President Truman makes the decision to use the bomb. And Oppenheimer, despite all his concerns, his advocacy for, maybe even briefing Stalin, he's basically pushed aside.
Yeah, you see how power shifts. The science takes a back seat to political agendas.
And then comes that fear of the arms race of, as Oppenheimer puts it, a chain reaction of destruction. He's really worried about what he sees unfolding, what his creation could lead to, a total global catastrophe.
He becomes a big advocate for international control of nuclear weapons, trying to get everyone to pump the brakes a bit. But people weren't really listening. Too many powerful figures saw the bomb as a sign of American strength.
And that's where Lewis Strauss comes in. At first, he seems to support Oppenheimer, but then he becomes his biggest rival.
Yeah.
It's an interesting relationship, isn't it? They go from mutual respect to this bitter rivalry.
What's interesting is it's not just about their views on nuclear weapons. There's a personal element to it, too. Strauss felt like Oppenheimer was looking down on him, like he was trying to humiliate him publicly.
Remember that scene where Oppenheimer basically dismisses Strauss's worries about exporting radioisotopes, things that could help other countries build their own bombs? Strauss is freaking out about security risks, but Oppenheimer's all for being open, talking to the Soviets.
It's a head-on collision of ideologies. Strauss, he's got that Cold War mindset, sees everything as a threat. And Oppenheimer, maybe a little naively, thinks dialogue and cooperation will win the day.
And it's that clash, those different views, that really drive them apart. Strauss starts thinking Oppenheimer's a security risk, points to his past communist ties. And that suspicion, it just festers. And it sets the stage for Oppenheimer's downfall.
And that brings us to that 1954 security hearing. It's a key moment in the film. Strauss basically uses it to destroy Oppenheimer, to take away his security clearance, to shut him up. Watching it all unfold, how they twist evidence, use his past against him, it's chilling.
The tension in those scenes is so thick you can cut it with a knife. You see Oppenheimer, this celebrated scientist, on trial. His whole life's work, his reputation, everything's on the line. It's like watching a witch hunt.
Yeah, it really exposes how, in times of paranoia, individual rights can be completely trampled on. They make it clear how unfair the whole thing was, how they denied him due process, and how it destroyed his career, devastated his life.
And it's all driven by personal grudges, by politics.
Yeah.
Strauss is pulling the strings, manipulating the system to get what he wants. It's messed up.
It's a dark part of American history, and the film portrays it accurately.
Yeah.
But what makes Oppenheimer so gripping is that it's not just good guys versus bad guys. It's about human nature, about the gray areas of scientific progress, the never-ending struggle for justice in a world that often revolves around power and self-interest.
And the acting is incredible. Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer, wow, just captivating. He embodies the brilliance, the inner conflict, the vulnerability of this guy. It's a nuanced performance, really powerful.
He's phenomenal, absolutely. And Robert Downey Jr. as Louis Strauss, he's equally impressive. He gets the ambition, the ruthlessness, and, the complexities of this antagonist, subtle but powerful.
Honestly, the whole cast is fantastic. They bring these historical figures to life. You see them as real people, flawed people.
Nolan's direction, as always, it's masterful. The film is visually stunning. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. And the score, oh man, the score. Haunting. You won't forget it.
It's one of those films that sticks with you. It makes you think about choices, consequences, the fact that we have the power to destroy ourselves.
Right. And on that note, let's take a quick pause here. We'll be back in a bit to delve deeper into the themes, the historical context, and those incredible performances that make Oppenheimer such a cinematic powerhouse.
You know, what really got to me was how the film captures that feeling of paranoia, that suspicion that was everywhere during the Cold War. Like everyone was looking over their shoulder.
Totally. It's not just Oppenheimer's story. It's like you're thrown right into that historical context, that climate of fear.
Yeah.
Anyone, even remotely left-leaning, could be labeled a communist, targeted by the government. Scary stuff.
Yeah, and the security hearing scenes, man, those are just bone-chilling. You see, Oppenheimer, this brilliant scientist, dedicated his life to his country, and they treat him like an enemy, questioning his loyalty, tearing down his reputation. It's rough.
It's a powerful indictment of that whole McCarthy era, the Red Scare. It shows how easily they could just, toss aside individual rights when they felt national security was at stake. And it's especially sad in Oppenheimer's case. Here's a guy who truly believed in talking things out, in diplomacy, even with the Soviets.
Yeah, his push for international control of nuclear weapons, that really shows that side of him. He saw what those bombs did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He understood the destructive power. He knew an arms race would be a disaster.
And yet, so many people just, brushed him off, ignored him. Of the political climate, the Cold War tension, the fear of communism, it was like nobody wanted to hear a voice of reason. It's almost like Oppenheimer saw the potential consequences more clearly than those in power, those who were so eager to, flex their nuclear muscles.
And it's something that still resonates today, don't you think? Trying to find common ground in a world that feels so divided, navigating all the political complexities, speaking truth to power, even when it's not what people want to hear. It makes you wonder, have we learned anything? Are we any better at listening to those who warn us about the consequences of our actions?
It's a good question, and it's one that Oppenheimer really forces us to confront. It doesn't give us easy answers, but it makes us think critically about the choices we make, as individuals, as a society.
But let's step back for a second and talk about the film itself. Putting aside the historical and political stuff, Oppenheimer is just a phenomenal piece of cinema. Nolan's direction, the pacing, the visuals, it's all top-notch.
Oh, yeah. And Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer, just mesmerizing. He really captures everything. The brilliance, the struggles, the tragic downfall.
Yeah.
Such nuance, such depth in his performance.
Absolutely. He completely disappears into the role. You can see the burden he carries, the guilt, the fear, it's all there. But he does it with this incredible subtlety, really powerful.
And he's got a fantastic supporting cast, too. Robert Downey Jr. as Louis Strauss, he's chillingly good, gets that ambition, that resentment, the way Strauss manipulates everyone around him.
Those scenes where Strauss is testifying before the Senate, those got to me. You can see him thinking, choosing his words carefully, using his charm to deflect blame, to control the narrative. Downey Jr. really brings us a sense of menace to the role. The back and forth between him and Murphy's Oppenheimer is just electric.
And we can't forget Matt Damon as General Leslie Groves. He's the military head of the Manhattan Project. Damon brings this gruff, but ultimately supportive presence. It's like he's balancing the scientific complexities with, the military realities of that time.
And Emily Blunt, she's fantastic as Kitty Oppenheimer. She plays his wife, and she just nails the emotional roller coaster. That strength and resilience of a woman standing by her husband while he's being attacked, publicly humiliated. She's not just there in the background. She's a vital part of his story. offering support but also challenging him when she needs to.
It really shows Nolan's skill as a director. He builds these fully realized characters, even those with smaller roles. You've got Florence Pugh, Josh Hartnett, Rami Malek. Each one adds another layer to the story. It's like you're meeting all the different players in this historical
Driven.
driven.
It's a true ensemble piece. Nolan weaves their stories together to create this tapestry of ambition, betrayal, scientific breakthroughs, and political maneuvering. It's as much about their individual journeys as it is about the larger forces at play.
Right. And visually, it's stunning. Nolan delivers, as always. The black and white sequences, the Trinity test, it's stark, almost like a documentary. And then you've got these vivid color scenes, all the political drama, the personal stories, the way he plays with light and shadow, color, composition. It's masterful.
And the sound design, man, it's just as impressive.
Yeah.
That score by Ludwig Göransson, it's haunting, evocative, fits perfectly with the visuals. And those moments of silence, they just build the tension, the anticipation.
Yeah.
Almost unbearable at times.
It's a film that grabs you, pulls you into Oppenheimer's world. You feel the pressure, the drama, the moral dilemmas, the weight of his decisions, the burden of what he knows. It's heavy stuff.
And it's all presented in a way that makes you think, makes you feel. It's not just entertainment. You walk out of the theater having experienced something profound, something that sticks with you. It's a film that needs to be seen on the big screen to really appreciate the scale, the visuals, the sound, the whole package.
And I think, most importantly, it starts important conversations about the role of science, about responsibility, about the need for cooperation on a global scale, to avoid the unthinkable. In a world that feels so chaotic, Oppenheimer reminds us of the consequences of unchecked ambition and how crucial it is to have leaders who actually think about the ethical implications of their actions.
So what are your final thoughts on Oppenheimer? What really stuck with you?
For me, it's how it captures the complexity of being human. Oppenheimer was a brilliant guy. He made huge contributions to science, but he also made some pretty terrible choices, choices that had devastating consequences. And the film shows us both sides. It forces us to think about those moral dilemmas that we all face in our own lives, even.
One thing that really struck me was how Oppenheimer blends those big historical moments with these really personal, intimate struggles. I mean, you see the weight of the world on Oppenheimer's shoulders, but you also see how it affects his relationships, his family, even his own sense of self.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just a historical figure. It's a human being. You see his vulnerabilities, his doubts. He's brilliant, but he's also full of regret. It's what makes his story so powerful, so tragic, really.
He's his hero, right? But he's haunted by what he created. I think it speaks to the whole moral dilemma of scientific progress.
Yeah.
Especially with something as powerful and destructive as the atomic bomb.
Yeah, that's a thread that runs through the whole film. That tension between, between scientific advancement and ethical responsibility, is knowledge always a good thing? Or is it about how we use it? That's the question.
It really makes you think about the role of scientists, doesn't it? Are they the only ones responsible for what they discover? Or do the governments, the institutions that fund them, do they share that responsibility? I mean, they're the ones who decide how these discoveries are used.
It's tough. There are no easy answers. And I think Oppenheimer does a great job of laying out those different perspectives, the different sides of the argument, without telling you what to think. It lets you wrestle with those questions yourself.
And that's what makes it such a thought-provoking film. It's not just about being entertained. It's about starting conversations, challenging what we believe, making us think about the world around us.
Oppenheimer definitely does that, and it does it with style. Visually stunning, the storytelling, those performances. Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer, just wow. The way he brings that character to life, the turmoil, the brilliance, the tragedy, it's something else.
Yeah, and the rest of the cast is top-notch too. Robert Downey Jr. as Strauss, he's phenomenal.
Right.
He's so intense. And the supporting cast, every single one of them, they add something special.
Nolan knows how to put together a cast, that's for sure. And he uses their talents to create this truly immersive experience.
Oppenheimer is a film that deserves to be seen on the big screen. You need that scale, the visuals, the sound. It all comes together to create something, well, something epic and intimate at the same time. It makes you think. It makes you feel.
I couldn't agree more. You walk out of the theater and it stays with you. It's a film that everyone should see, a film that'll be talked about for a long, long time.
Well, we've certainly explored a lot in our deep dive into Oppenheimer, but now we want to hear from you. What did you think of the film? What parts resonated with you? What questions did it raise? Leave us a comment below. Let's keep the conversation going.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more great film discussions. We'll see you next time.